The Galactic Concordance Council chamber hung in the silent dark of space, a great ring of polished obsidian and living crystal orbiting the green-blue jewel of Viridia Prime. Inside, delegates from 37 species sat in their designated alcoves, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some pulsed with bioluminescence, others shifted like liquid shadow, and a few simply sat still, their thoughts unreadable behind smooth masks of bone or metal. But today, even the most composed of them leaned forward, their postures tight with unease. It had started 3 days ago. A routine check-in from the human colony on Proxima B failed to respond. Not unusual. Solar flares, comms glitches happened. But then Tau Ceti went dark. Then Gliese 697, then Sirius. One by one, every human settlement across the Concordance's mapped territory fell silent. No mayday calls. No emergency beacons. No wreckage. Just empty frequencies where voices used to be. Now the Council faced a truth too vast to grasp. Every human being, billions upon billions, had vanished. Not died. Not fled in ships. Vanished. As if someone had reached into the universe and gently erased them. Councillor Virel of the Kethra tapped a sharp claw against her console. Her exoskeleton clicked with every movement, a sound that usually signaled calm authority. Today it was nervous. "We must assume the worst," she said, her voice a dry rasp amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "This is not disappearance. This is removal, and whatever did it may not be finished." From the far side of the ring, Archivist Mael shifted in his water-filled alcove. His smooth gray-green skin shimmered under the soft lights. Gills fluttered gently at his neck as he spoke, his voice low and calm like ripples on a deep lake. "There is no evidence of violence, Virel. No energy spikes, no weapon signatures, no signs of invasion. Human cities stand untouched. Food still sits on tables. Ships drift in orbit with full power but empty cockpits." "This was not an attack, then what was it?" snapped a delegate from the iron-skinned Dran. "Magic? Divine rapture? Do not insult our intelligence with riddles, Mael." Mael did not flinch. He had spent centuries studying the records of dead civilizations, the quiet ruins left behind by time. He knew silence better than most. "I do not claim to know," he said. "But I do know this: humans were loud. They argued, they sang, they built, they broke things, they fixed them again. They filled the void with noise. For all of them to fall silent at once, it was a choice. Or a consequence." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Choice, consequence. The idea unsettled them more than war would have. Or they understood. Silence they did not. Then a new alert flashed on every console. A signal, origin, sol system. Earth's home star. All eyes turned to the central holo display. A single waveform pulsed in the air, a steady rhythmic beat like a slow heartbeat. Beneath it, a counter ticked downward. 71:59:48. 71:59:47. "It's counting," whispered a young delegate from the avian Sylph. "Counting to what?" Virel demanded. No one answered. The number kept falling. Mail requested immediate access to all human data archives. Within hours, Concordance scouts reported the same thing from every human world. Every database, every personal log, every military record. Gone. Not destroyed. Not encrypted. Wiped clean as if never written. Yet the hardware remained intact. It was as if the information had been plucked out by something that knew exactly where to look. Only one anomaly appeared. On Earth, in the ruins of Geneva, a city once known as the heart of human diplomacy, a small object sat alone on the cracked marble steps of an old building. It was a cube, no larger than a fist, made of a metal no scanner could identify. It hummed softly, emitting no heat, no radiation, just a quiet vibration that matched the rhythm of the countdown signal. Virel argued for immediate quarantine of the entire Sol system. "Whatever this is, it's spreading," she insisted. "We seal it off. Burn the approach lanes if we must," but Mael disagreed. "That cube is the only clue we have. If we destroy access to it, we may never understand what happened, and whether it could happen to us." The debate raged for hours. Fear warred with curiosity. Duty clashed with dread. In the end, the Council voted narrowly to send a small unarmed science vessel to Sol. No weapons, no soldiers, just observers. And Mael would go. As the ship, the Whisper, prepared to depart Viridia Prime, Jorik stood on the observation deck. He was Veln, tall-scaled with eyes like chips of amber. He had fought in 3 border wars and lost 2 siblings to human-made weapons during the resource conflicts. He had no love for humans, but he respected silence, and this silence felt wrong. He had not volunteered for this mission. He'd been assigned as security liaison, a formality since the ship carried no weapons, but something in the way the cube hummed, something in the way the countdown ticked like a dying star's last breath, made him feel uneasy in a way battle never had. The whisper slipped into the void, its engines whispering against the dark. Behind it, the council chamber remained lit, delegates watching the countdown from afar. 68 to 12:03, fate 12:02. On Earth, the wind blew through empty streets. Trees grew through broken pavement. Birds nested in skyscrapers. Rivers ran clean. The planet healed in the absence of its children, and on the steps of the old UN building, the cube pulsed once as if sensing the approaching ship. Mael stood at the viewport, his webbed fingers pressed lightly against the cool glass. He did not speak. He only watched the blue world grow larger, his mind racing through ancient texts, forgotten myths, and the strange, stubborn hope that humans had always carried, even when they had no reason to. Jorik joined him. "You really think they left on purpose?" he asked, his voice rough. "I think they saw something we cannot yet see," Mael replied, "and they chose to walk into it." The whisper entered Earth's orbit. Sensors showed no threats, no traps, just peace. Too much peace. As the shuttle descended toward Geneva, the cube's hum grew stronger. Not louder, stronger. It vibrated in the bones, in the teeth, in the quiet spaces between thoughts. When Mael stepped onto the damp grass, he felt it immediately. The weight of absence. Not emptiness. Absence. Like a room where someone had just left and you could still feel the shape of them in the air. He approached the cube slowly. Jorik followed, hand near his sidearm. Not because he expected danger, but because silence this deep made even warriors nervous. Mael knelt. He reached out, and as his fingers brushed the cool surface, the cube flared, not with light, but with sound. A child's voice, clear and small, cut through the stillness. "They saw us coming." Then the voice vanished. The cube fell silent. But the countdown, now visible on Mael's wrist display, ticked faster. To 59 to 11. 6, 7, 9, 10. Back on Viridia Prime, Viral watched the feed from Earth. Her claws dug into the armrests of her seat. She did not understand the words, but she understood fear, and for the first time in her long life she wondered if the humans hadn't been the monsters after all. Maybe they'd been the warning. The shuttle lifted off from Geneva's silent streets, the cube secured in a shielded case on Mael's lap. It no longer hummed, but Mael could still feel its presence like a stone dropped into the still pond of his thoughts. Jorik sat across from him, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the viewport as Earth shrank below. The blue planet looked peaceful, almost innocent. But Jorik knew better. Peace like this was not natural. It was the peace of a grave. Back aboard the Whisper, the science team ran every test they could. The cube resisted all attempts to open it, scan it, or even scratch its surface. It absorbed energy, reflected none, and gave off no heat. Yet when Mael placed his hand near it again, the child's voice returned. Just 3 words over and over. "They saw us coming." No one knew who they were, or who us referred to. Humans, the concordance, something else entirely. While the scientists worked, the countdown continued. It had dropped below 60 hours, and then without warning, every screen on the ship flickered. A new signal pulsed through the comms, not from Earth, but from deeper in the Sol system. From Jupiter's moon, Europa, the signal was faint, buried under layers of ice and static, but it matched the cube's rhythm, same pulse. Same silence between beats. Mael showed the data to Jorik. "Europa," he said simply. Jorik frowned. "Why there? Humans barely touched that moon. A few research stations all abandoned decades ago. Perhaps they found something they weren't meant to," Mael replied. The Whisper changed course. As it approached the icy moon, sensors picked up strange energy readings beneath the surface, steady, ancient, and unlike anything in Concordance records. No life signs, no machines, just a slow, deep thrum like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. A landing party was assembled. Mael insisted on going. Jorik, against his better judgment, agreed to lead the security detail, even though they carried no weapons, only scanners and recording gear. The council had been clear. Observe, do not interfere. The shuttle touched down on Europa's frozen crust. The surface was white and cracked, lit by the distant glow of Jupiter. Cold seeped through their suits, but the real chill came from the silence. No wind, no sound at all. Just the crunch of ice underfoot. Using ground-penetrating sonar, they found it. A structure. Not built on the surface, but carved into the ice, descending kilometers down toward the hidden ocean below. The entrance was smooth, circular, and clearly not natural. Symbols lined the rim, faded, worn, but unmistakably human in style, mixed with shapes no one recognized. Mael ran his gloved hand over the markings. This wasn't just a station, he whispered over the comms. This was a door. They activated the lift built into the ice shaft. It descended slowly, the walls glowing faintly with embedded lights that flickered to life as they passed. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, not from the cube but from the structure itself. At the bottom, they stepped into a vast chamber. The air was warm, dry, and smelled faintly of ozone. In the center stood a ring of tall black pillars, each covered in the same strange symbols. Between them, a pool of still, dark water reflected the ceiling like a mirror, and floating above the pool, dozens of small silver drones. They hovered silently, no wings, no visible propulsion. They did not attack. They simply turned as one to face the intruders. Jorik raised a hand, signaling the team to stop. "Don't move," he said quietly. The drones drifted closer. One extended a thin filament of light and brushed it against Miles' chest. He froze. The light scanned him from head to toe, then retracted. Another drone did the same to Jorik, then to the others. Nothing happened. No alarms, no traps. Just scanning. Then, without warning, one drone shot forward and wrapped its limbs around Miles' arm. He cried out, but it wasn't painful, just firm. A beam of soft blue light shot from its core into Miles' visor. Suddenly, Miles wasn't in the chamber anymore. He stood in a field of golden grass under a sky filled with two suns. A human child, no older than 6, stood before him holding a small wooden bird. The child looked up, eyes wide and calm. "They didn't take us," the child said. "We went." Behind the child, the air shimmered. A doorway of light opened, showing not stars but swirling colors that bent space and time. Thousands of humans walked through it, not running, not crying. Walking calmly like pilgrims. "We saw them first," the child said. "The Watchers. They've been sleeping since the stars were young. And they were lonely." Then the vision ended. Mael gasped, stumbling back. The drone released him and floated away, returning to the circle. Jorik caught him before he fell. "What happened?" Mael's voice shook. "Humans didn't vanish. They left on purpose. They found something ancient, and it called to them." Back on the Whisper, the team debated what to do. Some wanted to report immediately to the council. Others argued they should destroy the site, seal it forever. Jorik stayed silent, replaying Mael's words in his mind. They went, not taken, not killed, chose to leave, but why leave everything behind? Why erase all their data? Why the countdown? Mael studied the cube again. This time he noticed something new. Tiny etchings on its surface, coordinates. Not to a place in space, but to a moment in time. A convergence point. And it matched the countdown's end. As they prepared to leave Europa, a priority message burst through the comms from Viridia Prime. It was Virel. "The council is in chaos," her voice crackled, strained. 3 member species have withdrawn. The Dran are calling for the sterilization of all human worlds. They say this is a trap, a virus that eats minds and leaves bodies behind. I've seen the footage from Europa. That structure, it's not human. It's older, far older. And if it's waking up, we must be ready to fight. Jorik keyed the mic. "There's nothing to fight, Virel. The humans are gone. The drones didn't attack us. They only watched." "Watching is how predators begin," she snapped. "You don't understand what you found. That place is a nest, and we just rang the doorbell." The line went dead. Mael looked at Jorik. "She's afraid. Afraid enough to burn worlds," Jorik said grimly. They returned to orbit, just as the countdown hit 48 hours. Then something impossible happened. Every star in the human-claimed sectors, Proxima, Sirius, Tau Ceti, even distant colonies near the galactic rim, flickered. Not dimmed, flickered like a candle blown out and relit in the same breath. The blackout lasted exactly 7 seconds. Then light returned, But in those 7 seconds, every ship, every station, every sensor in the Concordance lost power. Not failed, just paused, as if time itself had hiccuped. When systems rebooted, panic erupted across the network. Species accused each other of sabotage. The Dran activated their war fleet. The Sylth closed their borders. Even the usually calm Ulan Enclave went silent. Only the cube remained steady. And now, its surface glowed faintly, showing a new symbol, a spiral leading inward like a path to the center of something vast. Mael understood. The flicker wasn't an attack. It was a signal, a test. The ancient intelligence, the Watchers, had noticed the Concordance poking around. And it was asking a question, are you ready? But no one knew the answer. Jorik stood at the viewport again, watching Europa's icy surface turn gold in Jupiter's light. He thought of the child in Mael's vision. So calm, so sure. What if they weren't running from something? Jorik said quietly. What if they were running towards something? Better, Mael joined him. Then the countdown isn't an end. It's a beginning. But on Viridia Prime, Varel was already drafting orders. Not for study, not for peace, for fire. She believed the humans had opened a door they couldn't close, and if the Concordance didn't slam it shut now, whatever lay beyond would swallow them all. The whisper drifted in the silent dark, caught between a vanished species, an ancient mystery, and a council tearing itself apart in fear. The cube pulsed once, softly, as if sighing. 39 hours remained, and somewhere, deep beneath Europa's ice, the Watchers stirred in their sleep. The whisper hung in orbit above Europa, its crew silent, its systems quiet. Below, the ice moon looked unchanged, cold, white, and still. But everything had changed. The 7-second blackout had shaken the Concordance to its core. Fear spread faster than any signal, twisting facts into nightmares. Rumors flew. Humans had unleashed a reality-eating plague. The cube was a bomb. The countdown marked the end of all life. Mael sat alone in the science bay, the cube resting on the table before him. It no longer showed the spiral. Now it displayed a single word repeating in every known language of the Concordance, including some long dead. Listen. He had tried to explain the vision to the council, but his message was buried under panic. Viral's faction now controlled emergency protocols. She had declared the Sol system a Class 9 containment zone. No entry, no exit, and if any ship approached Europa, it would be destroyed on sight. Jorik entered, his heavy steps echoing in the empty room. They're calling us traitors, he said, voice low. Saying we've been touched by whatever took the humans. Mael didn't look up. Truth is often mistaken for betrayal when fear is in charge. Jorik leaned against the wall. What do? We can't stay here. And we can't go back. We go deeper, Mael said. Jorik frowned. Back down there? After what happened? The drones didn't harm us, Mael replied. They showed me a memory. That means they can communicate. And if they can communicate, they can be reasoned with, Jorik wanted to argue. Every instinct told him to run, to put as much distance between himself and that icy tomb as possible. But he remembered the child's calm eyes, the quiet certainty in those 3 words. They saw us coming. It didn't sound like fear. It sounded like warning, or invitation. They returned to the chamber beneath the ice. This time they brought no scanners, no tools, only themselves. The drones waited, hovering in their perfect circle above the dark pool. As before, they scanned the 2 visitors. But this time, when the filament touched Mael, it didn't pull him into a vision. Instead, the entire chamber lit up. The black pillars glowed. The pool rippled, though no wind stirred. Images formed in the water. Not reflections, but scenes from long ago. Humans in old-fashioned suits drilling into the ice, finding the structure, entering it. At first they were afraid, then curious, then changed. One scene showed a human scientist placing her hand on a pillar. Light poured from her fingertips. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Then she walked toward the center of the room and vanished, not in a flash, but like mist dissolving in morning sun. Another scene showed thousands of humans, gathered not on Earth, but here, on Europa. They stood in silence, holding hands, looking up as the ceiling opened to the stars. A soft light descended, wrapping around them, lifting them away. They didn't leave in ships, Mael whispered. They left through this place. The structure is a gateway. Jorik stared. To where? To something older than stars, Miles said. The Watchers, the beings the child spoke of, they don't live in space. They live between moments. Between thoughts. They've been asleep for eons, dreaming the universe into shape. And humans were the first to hear them wake. The drones shifted. One floated forward and projected a new image into the air. A vast dark shape curled in endless void, its form shifting like smoke. Around it, threads of light pulsed, each thread a species, a world, a timeline. One thread, bright and chaotic, pulsed stronger than the rest. Human. Then the image changed. The human thread unraveled, not broken, but woven into the Watcher's form. Not destroyed, transformed. Jork finally understood. They didn't die. They joined it, Miles nodded. And the cube. It's not a weapon. It's a key. Left behind so others could follow if they were ready. As if in answer, the cube in Miles' pocket grew warm. He took it out. The word listen was gone. Now it showed a new message. Only those who do not seek to conquer may enter. Back on Viridia Prime, Virel watched the live feed from the Whisper's last transmission. She saw the images in the pool. She saw the drones. She saw Miles' awe, and she saw only danger. They're being fooled, she told her inner circle. That thing under the ice isn't a gateway. It's a lure. It took the humans, and now it wants more. We cannot let it spread. She activated Protocol Iron Veil, a wartime measure that gave her direct control over the Concordance's orbital defense grid. 3 heavy cruisers, armed with plasma lances and gravity mines, were already en route to Sol. Their orders: destroy the Europa structure at all costs. Jork and Miles returned to the Whisper with more questions than answers. But they had one certainty. The countdown wasn't a timer for destruction. It was a window, a chance for another species to step forward, to prove they were more than fear and fire. They tried to warn the Council, but their comms were jammed. Virel had cut them off. She's going to attack, Jork said, pacing the bridge. And if she damages that structure, what happens to the Watcher? What if it wakes up angry? Miles stared at the cube. Then the silence ends. And something far worse begins. They had one advantage. The Whisper was small, fast, and unmarked. It could slip past patrols if they moved quickly. Their goal was no longer to study. It was to protect. They plotted a course to intercept the lead cruiser, the Iron Maw, before it reached Europa. Jork knew its captain, Krell, a hardliner who believed strength was the only language the universe understood. As the Whisper raced through the void, Miles studied the cube's final layer. Buried beneath the warnings and symbols was a pattern, a sequence of pulses that matched the Watcher's rhythm. If played at the right moment, it might calm the ancient being, even if the structure was damaged. But it had to be done from inside the chamber. Jork looked at him. You're going back down there, aren't you? If the Iron Maw fires, I must be there, Miles said. Not to fight, to speak. The countdown hit 24 hours. The Iron Maw entered the Jovian system, flanked by 2 destroyers, its weapons charged. Virel's voice echoed across all channels. All non-military vessels clear the Sol exclusion zone immediately. This is your final warning. The Whisper did not respond. It dropped into Europa's shadow, cloaked by the moon's magnetic field. On the surface, Miles and Jork ran toward the entrance. Ice cracked under their boots. Above, the sky burned with the light of approaching warships. They reached the chamber just as the first plasma bolt streaked toward Europa. The drones rose as one, forming a shield over the pool. The blast hit the ice miles above, but the shockwave shook the chamber. Cracks spread across the walls. The pillars flickered. Miles placed the cube on the central dais. He began the pulse sequence, tapping the surface in rhythm with the Watcher's heartbeat. Jork stood guard at the entrance, watching the ceiling tremble. Another blast, closer, then silence. The drones stilled. The pool went dark. Miles' hands froze. It hurt us, he whispered. Deep below in the hidden ocean, something moved. Not with anger, with curiosity. The Watcher was waking, and it was listening. The silence after the plasma blast was heavier than any sound. Dust drifted from the chamber ceiling. The black pillars stood cracked but unbroken. The drones hovered low, their silver forms dimmed as if holding their breath. Miles knelt beside the cube, his hands trembling not from fear but from awe. The pulse sequence had worked. The Watcher had heard, and it had chosen not to strike back. But outside, the warship still loomed. Jorik watched the entrance tunnel, his back stiff. "They'll fire again," he said. "Krell doesn't stop until the target is Ash." Mael rose slowly. "Then we must make him see." "How?" "He thinks we're infected, or traitors, and not with weapons," Mael said. With truth, he picked up the cube. It no longer showed symbols or words. Now it glowed with a soft, steady light, the same light that had lifted the humans in the vision. "The Watcher isn't a god. It isn't a monster. It's a gardener. It tends to the seeds of consciousness across the cosmos. Humans were the first to bloom in a way it understood, not through power but through feeling. Through art, grief, kindness, even foolish hope. That's why it called them." Jorik shook his head. "Krell won't care about poetry. He only understands force." "Then we give him something he can't ignore," Mael said. They returned to the whisper. As they lifted off, the Iron Maw powered up its main cannon again. This time it aimed not at the surface but directly at the coordinates of the chamber. Mael sent a single transmission, not to the Council, not to Varel but to every ship, every station, every listening post in the concordance. He didn't speak. He simply played the cube's final recording, the full vision. The golden field, the child, the doorway of light, the humans walking into it calm and unafraid, and beneath it all the slow, deep hum of the Watcher, vast, ancient, and strangely gentle. For a moment the entire network fell silent. On the bridge of the Iron Maw, Krell stared at the screen. He saw his own reflection in the glass, hard eyes, scarred face, a warrior who had spent his life preparing for enemies. But here was no enemy, only a choice. Varel's voice crackled over his private channel. "Ignore it. It's a trick. Fire now!" Krell hesitated. His finger hovered over the firing stud. Then from deep within Europa a new signal rose. Not a countdown, not a warning, a song. It was wordless, toneless, yet it carried meaning. It spoke of stars being born, of oceans freezing and thawing, of civilizations rising and falling like tides. It spoke of loneliness and of connection. And woven through it all was the echo of human voices. Laughter, lullabies, whispered goodbyes. The song filled every mind that heard it. Not as sound, but as understanding. Krell lowered his hand. "Hold fire," he ordered, his voice rough. Varel screamed over the comms, but no one obeyed. Across the fleet, weapons powered down. Even the most hardened soldiers stood still, tears on their faces, touched by something they couldn't name. But Varel was not done. From Viridia Prime, she activated the final protocol. Orbital Scourge. A network of hidden satellites placed during the early days of the Concordance, designed to cleanse entire systems with gamma pulses. If triggered, it would fry every circuit, every living cell on Europa, and possibly awaken the Watcher in rage. Mael saw the activation signal flash on his console. "She's going to burn it all," he whispered. Jorik cursed. "We can't stop it from here." "We don't have to," Mael said. He looked at the cube. "The Watcher already knows." As if in answer, the song changed. It grew stronger, deeper. The ice around Europa began to glow from within. Not with heat, but with light, soft, blue, and alive. The hidden ocean surged, not with waves, but with energy. The structure beneath the ice pulsed like a heart. Then every star in the human-claimed sectors flickered again. This time it lasted 10 seconds. During those 10 seconds, time did not stop. It bent. On Viridia Prime, Varel stood in her command chamber, finger on the final trigger. But in that stretched moment, she saw something. Not a vision. A memory, not hers, but shared. She saw a human mother singing to her baby on a rainy night. She saw a farmer planting seeds in red soil under twin suns. She saw strangers sharing water in a desert. Small acts, quiet courage. No conquest, no glory. Just life lived with care. When time snapped back, her hand was shaking. She could not press the button. The orbital scourge remained silent. Back on the whisper, Mael exhaled. It showed her what humans truly were. Jorik stared at the glowing moon below. "And now what?" "Now," Mael said. "It offers a choice." The cube floated from his hand, rising on its own. It drifted toward the viewport, then shot downward back to the chamber. A beam of light followed it, connecting the ship to the ice like a thread of starlight. A message formed in the air, not in words, but in feeling. One may come. Not to replace, not to rule, but to listen. The invitation was open, but not to all. Only to one who had proven they valued life over control. Mail turned to Jorik. It's asking for a representative. Jorik stepped back. Not me, I'm a soldier. I break things. I don't understand songs. You stood between fire and silence, Mile said. That is understanding enough, but Mile knew the truth. The Watcher had shown him more in the chamber than he'd told anyone. It wasn't just about who went. It was about why. The next step wasn't about replacing humans. It was about proving another species could walk the same path, not with weapons, but with wonder. He looked at the light beam stretching down to Europa. I must go, Jorik wanted to argue. To say it was suicide, to say the Concordance needed him. But he saw the peace in Miles' eyes. This wasn't death. It was purpose. Above them, the warships powered down completely. Krell opened a channel. Archivist. Whatever happens, thank you, Mile nodded. Tell them not to fear the silence. Listen to what it carries. He boarded a small pod and descended alone. The chamber welcomed him. The drones parted. The pool stilled. The cube rested on the dais, pulsing gently. Mile placed his hand on it. The Watcher's song filled his mind, not as sound, but as presence. It asked no questions. It simply waited. Mile closed his eyes. He thought of Earth's empty cities, of the child's voice, of the golden field, and he stepped forward, light wrapped around him. Not burning, but lifting on the whisper. Jorik watched as Mile vanished, not in an explosion, not in a flash, but like mist returning to the sky. The beam of light faded. The cube disappeared. The chamber fell dark, but the song remained, faint now, echoing through the comms of every ship in the system. Krell's voice came through, quiet. What do we do now? Jorik looked at the stars. We wait, and we listen. Back on Viridia Prime, Varel sat alone in her chamber. The trigger was still there, but she no longer wanted to use it. For the first time she understood. The humans hadn't been the threat. They'd been the bridge, and now the bridge was open, for anyone brave enough to cross it not with fear, but with faith. The silence after Mile vanished was not empty. It hummed. Not with machines or voices, but with something deeper. The quiet breath of a universe holding still, waiting to see what would happen next. On the whisper, Jorik stood at the viewport staring at the spot where Mile had disappeared. There was no flash, no explosion, no trail of light. Just a man stepping into the unknown and becoming part of it. The song from the Watcher had faded, but its echo remained in Jorik's bones, a soft rhythm that made his heart beat slower, calmer. Above Europa, the Concordance fleet hung motionless. No weapons charged, no orders shouted. Even Varel had gone quiet. The orbital Scourge satellites powered down one by one, their deadly charge bleeding into the void. Something had changed, not in the stars, but in the minds of those who watched them. Then a new signal spread through every channel. Not from the cube. Not from the chamber. From everywhere. It was a single image repeated across every screen, every comms device, every public display from Viridia Prime to the farthest mining outpost. A simple spiral, turning inward, then outward, like a breath. Beneath it, in every language, 3 words. Are you ready? No threat, no demand. Just a question. On the Iron Maw, Krell removed his command badge and placed it on the console. He opened a general broadcast. This ends now, he said, his voice rough but clear. We came to destroy what we didn't understand. But fear is not wisdom. I stand down. One by one, other captains followed. Ships powered down their weapons. Crews gathered on decks not for battle, but for silence, for listening. Jorik knew what had to be done. He contacted Viridia Prime. Not Varel, but the full council chamber. Every delegate was still there, though many had stopped speaking hours ago. When his face appeared on their screens, they leaned forward. The humans didn't vanish, Jorik said. They answered a call. And now, that call is open to us. But it's not a gift. It's a test. The Watcher doesn't want soldiers. It doesn't want rulers. It wants those who can listen, truly listen, to the quiet places between stars, between lives, between fears. He paused. Mile went not as a hero, but as a student. And the Watcher accepted him. That means we are not alone, and we are not doomed. Virel watched from the shadows of her private booth. She said nothing, but she did not leave. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to seal the Sol system forever. Others demanded immediate missions to study the gateway. But a new voice rose, soft, steady, from the Ulan Enclave. We spent centuries believing we were the wisest. But wisdom is not knowledge. It is humility. Humans showed us that. Now we must choose. Will we follow with open hands or closed fists? In the end, the Concordance made a decision unlike any in its history. It voted to dissolve the old council. Not out of chaos, but clarity. From now on, no single species would lead. Decisions would be made only when all agreed, not by majority, but by unity. It would be slow. It would be hard. But it would be honest. Jorik returned to Viridia Prime alone. The Whisper was retired. Its log sealed his sacred record. He was offered honors, medals, a seat on the new council. He refused them all. Instead, he asked for one thing, to guard the memory of what happened. He walked the empty halls of the old council chamber, now quiet, its obsidian walls reflecting the green light of Viridia Prime below. He thought of Mael, of the child's voice, of the song that had stilled a war. Weeks passed. Then months. The countdown had ended long ago, but its echo remained. No more vanishings, no more blackouts, just peace, fragile, strange, and new. Then one evening, as Jorik stood on the observation deck watching the stars, a soft chime sounded in his earpiece. A private channel unused since Mael's departure. He almost didn't answer, but he did. A voice came through. Not Mael's, not human, not any voice he knew. It was layered, like wind through trees and water over stone and distant stars humming. It spoke one word. Come. Jorik's breath caught. He looked at the stars. Not with fear. Not with hope. With readiness, he didn't tell anyone. He simply walked to the shuttle bay, boarded a small vessel, and set course for Sol. When he reached Europa, the ice was already glowing. The entrance to the chamber stood open, though no one had touched it. He descended alone, the drones waited. The pool was calm. In the center, the cube hovered once more, but it was different, larger, warmer. And it pulsed with a rhythm that matched Jorik's own heartbeat. He approached. The drones did not scan him. They bowed just slightly like reeds in a gentle current. The cube projected no vision this time. It simply opened, a doorway of light just like in Mael's memory. Beyond it, colors moved that had no name, shapes shifted that had no edge. And somewhere in that swirling quiet, Jorik felt Mael's presence not as a voice but as a feeling. Welcome. He stepped through, not as a warrior, not as a savior, just as himself. Back on Viridia Prime, the new council gathered under open skies. They did not speak of conquest or control. They spoke of listening, of learning, of waiting. And high above, in the endless dark, the stars burned steady. The age of fear was over. The age of listening had begun.